All right. So far in this chapter we've talked about linear equations, and we've talked about the three ways of writing the equations of a line. We talked about point slope, slope intercept, and standard form. We always start with point slope, no matter which other type they want us to go. Now, today we're going to do an application. We're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. When we talk about parallel lines, our slopes are exactly the same. What they're going to ask on the homework, they're going to give you an equation like y equals negative 3/4 x plus 5. We know the slope of this is?
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah, it does. And now I want to rewrite the equation that will go through 7/11. So, if it goes through that point and I know the slope, I have to start with the point slope form. And again, you write it down each time you use it, because eventually you'll have it memorized. So in our case, the y minus and the x minus are always going to be the same. The m in this case is a negative 3/4. The x coordinate is 7, and the y coordinate is 11. If they ask you to stop in the point slope form, in other words, if they ask you to write your equation in the point slope form, you would stop here. Normally that's not going to happen. And if there's no instructions, you always go to the slope intercept form, because that one's ready to graph. Like if you had a graphing utility, you could just pop it right in. So what we're going to do next is we're going to change this point slope into the slope intercept. So we're going to dp, and I'm going to use improper fractions because it is easier to add improper fractions. How do I get rid of that negative 11? But I want to add it as fourths, so it'll be 44/11. So I'm going to add a positive 44/11, and that will make 65 fourths, because I added 44 fourths, which is like 11. And now I have the slope intercept form. Okay? So, what we're going to deal with, parallel line, slope the same. Here's an example. All right, now let's go do the other side. When we talk about perpendicular lines, you know perpendicular lines form right angles, correct? What happens are two slopes are called negative reciprocals. Or one slope is equal to the reciprocal of the other one, and then you put the negative in there. Or you could think as the product of the two slopes is equal to a -1. All right, so let's go back, and we're going to take our equation that we did earlier. What's the slope of this line? Now, what is the slope of the perpendicular one? First off, the signs always have to be opposite. If one's positive, then the other one has to be negative, or if it's negative, it has to be positive. So in our case, will ours be positive or negative? It'll be positive. Now, does everybody know what a reciprocal is? Just flip the fraction. So what will our answer be?
4/3.
And we've now found the perpendicular slope. Okay, let's go back over that again. The signs are always opposite, and the fractions are flipped. Now, if they would have given me a slope of 5, what would be the perpendicular slope? -1/5, because the signs are always opposite. All right, before we go any further, hit the pause.